All right, welcome back. It is June 29th. It is 2023, and this is The Grit. I am David Scales. You are Chaz Smith.
Coming to you live, David Lee, from beautiful Santa Clarita. I think that's what it is. Santa Clarita, California. Up
Famous
Valencia
for,
way.
yeah, famous for Magic Mountain.
Yeah, I think Magic Mountain is in the vicinity. I didn't know what else it was famous for.
Oranges.
Movie ranches. I thought
Oh,
movie ranches were like, I don't know. You saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, did you not?
Spawn Ranch.
Yeah, Spawn Ranch. And I knew that stuff existed, but it really exists in like real life.
What is a movie ranch?
It's a movie ranch. It is a giant ranch out here that they film movies on. Like there's old towns in there. There's all different. There's like multiple different like kind of zones, and then free to roam zones, I guess.
So it's like going to a movie studio, but it's all on a ranch instead of in the
Yeah.
middle of LA.
So it's all like outdoors, or mostly.
What are you filming? What are you working on?
The daughter has become a child actress. Apparently, she got cast without audition or anything. I can't even imagine that child actor life seems difficult. But yeah, she got cast in a feature film. So she is filming right now. She is on
Feature film
set.
about what? How did this all happen? How did she get cast without even auditioning?
I have no idea. I really literally don't know, and I didn't even know really what the project was up until like rocked up on set the first day with her and realized, oh wait, this is not just like a small thing. This is like a SAG-AFTRA official union Hollywood picture. And yeah, so I'm still trying to put together the pieces. She's putting in the workday and I'm theoretically, thankfully, the wife is here because I didn't know.
Okay.
I thought we were going to dump her off and off we went. Absolutely not. Like by union law, a parent or guardian has to be there all day, like
Okay.
for the shoot day, even though they
So
have what is called a studio teacher who's also there.
insane. So did your wife organize it, and does she know all the details and how this happened? And
No, I mean so it came through. It's a friend of hers is a director, and said I think Hemingway would be perfect for this. She's playing I don't know how much I'm supposed to share about the film itself, but she's playing Gretel as in
oh wow,
Hansel and Gretel.
wow.
And so, yeah, but so he wanted her, and then I was like, sure, whatever. Like, don't want to take too much time away from the ballet, but like, it's just a 4-day shoot. We can figure it out, and yeah, but it's all like it's wildly eye opening what a real
Yeah,
union Hollywood production is like.
yeah. Can you say who's in the film? Other stars or
I don't even know, like
talent involved?
because they're filming the Hansel and Gretel scene
Okay.
is like, yeah, they're doing that, and then so I really don't know who else even is attached or involved.
Well, keep us posted as it comes into post production and release because we, of course, want to see it.
Yeah, it'll be pretty funny.
Yeah. That's kind of the dream situation, by the way, in terms of being a child actor or an actor of any kind, is I have no ambition or delusion to think that I have the talent to become an actor, but I
Yeah,
want to earn the wage of an actor for the limited amount of work. Like you said, it's a 4 hour workday today specifically. But I just want to be plucked out of obscurity by a director, be like, hey, you'd be perfect for this project. Come shoot. We're going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars, and then you can go back to living your regular life.
here's the thing. It is the hardest work ever. The kids, it is not a 4-hour day. The kids work. I don't know what it is by law, but there is literally, since it's union, there is checks upon checks upon checks. You have the studio teacher who joked, I'm neither work for the studio nor I'm a teacher. He is literally there as like, because there's kids on set to make sure that all child labor laws are being followed, right? So he
Correct.
follows them around with a clipboard, like marking times in, times out, all that. But it is a grind. Those kids, I mean, she is working. It's like the new, I don't know, factory work for when children used to work in factories. Like it is not easy. And she shows up for her whatever the exact legal hours are, which is I think it's an 8-hour day for her. everybody else is there 2 hours before, and who know? I think they're working 24 hours basically.
Yeah.
Everybody else, yeah,
Yeah.
like it is. I thought, oh yeah, a plush life. It is not a plush nor an easy life. Her
Crazy.
co her Hansel is a child actor properly. So he goes though from this to other auditions to callbacks to whatever, where it seems like he's working honest to goodness like 7 days a week, 16-hour days
You know what the
as a 12
best
year old.
episodes of this show are going to be?
What?
In a year or 18 months from now, when this film, let's say, blows up the box office or Netflix streaming or whatever it is, and Hemi is dealing with the dark side of child stardom, and we're hearing the parents' take on her hanging out with Hansel at
Yeah.
premieres around the world, going to parties in Paris where there's all
Yep.
sorts of illicit drugs, and it's like, yeah, that's going to be the show.
That's going to be the show. Yeah, I can't wait for that show.
Your take, I mean, all of that would be entertaining enough, but your take on it will be the best.
Yeah, yeah, I'll show
Fun.
when I can. I'll show some behind the scenes clips. I'll send you some. It's
Okay.
pretty funny.
Cool. Yeah, I'm totally interested. Well, hey, that actually is kind of a nice segue into our first email and call or two that are related to our last show. Somebody wrote in and said, "Hey, David and Chaz, I've thought about this a lot before your discussion today on the grit, and I think I've identified the root of the problem. This is related to us talking about there's no young people in surfing anymore.
Yes.
He says, similar to Chaz, I don't think surfing is, quote, too hard. Similar to ballet, as Chaz pointed out, skateboarding has seen a tremendous youth growth and is equally hard. But surfing hasn't seen the growth with the youth. I believe the real problem is that young families, aka couples in their 30s and 40s who have young children, cannot afford to live in beach cities any longer. When the starter home requires a $5,000 monthly mortgage, beach cities like Newport Beach, California have turned into retirement communities where only those who have or are near to their golden years can afford to purchase homes and live near waves. And I'm actually going to play a call for you immediately as well because it happened to land on this same idea, but expands upon it a little bit more.
Hey, Grit Boys. It's Mike, your old casino buddy. I was thinking about the whole thing about younger kids starting in the sport, and I kind of look at it from an anecdotal perspective. When I was a kid, and I'm a lot older than you guys, we all lived close to the beach. My father worked for the railroad. Nobody had any money. All my buddies and I just had surfing. That community doesn't even exist where I'm originally from. All the homes, the little cottages have been torn down. They're big McMansions. The families that are there use them off and on. So you have an entire population of not only kids that don't have the access anymore, but your generation of dads who could not afford the access anymore. So, my sons surf. They all learned because we lived close to the beach when it was affordable. These days, the old surf buddies, they can't afford to live near the beach because the house that my father bought for like $6,000 is now $850,000, and they tear it down and put a bigger house on it. So I know a bit of it was tongue-in-cheek, but I think there is a serious discussion of access for this generation that just doesn't have it anymore, which is a shame. You talk to any of the old guys, man, older than me, that was where they went. Like the beach was their babysitter. Now, not so much. So keep up the work, fellas.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, totally true. Real quick, before I get into that, just flagging something in case we get too far into this. Mine usually says like 99% uploading. When we're at this end, it says 17% on my end. I've never seen
Okay.
it that low before, so I don't know if
I think it'll
that's a
catch
me
up.
problem. Okay.
I think it'll catch up.
Okay. Yeah, totally. I mean, I completely agree with both emailer and caller in terms of young families being priced out and who can afford it. And then I think the families with young kids who can't afford it, I think generally their kids are, I mean, I live in a beach community and see these young kids, you know, and the kind of pockets where there are kids surfing that I see, like D Street has some, and Seaside has some kids surfing there, right? Like even predominantly kids, but that's mostly it. And I always think, you know, spoiled kids who are zipping around on their e-bikes and whatever, you know, the kind of time and energy it takes to surf, they can get a lot more, what, bang for their, not, yeah, like they just have money to spend and can do anything. Like I think, like to this caller's point, I think the beach is free. And so even if you couldn't really afford a board, you could go down to the beach with your buddies and body surf and do all that sort of thing. And then, you know, if somebody has a board, you can pass it around. And then eventually you get a board, and it's still all free. All you need is a board, and that's literally it. You don't even need a wetsuit to surf, right? If you want to brave it. But another thing that I was thinking while he was talking, so I think that's completely true, that young families have been priced out. You know where has really cheap, affordable homes and lots of young families? Like basically free homes.
Around wave pools in the desert?
Like this little community called Lemoore, California. And guess who's pricing those families out of surfing? This thing called the World Surf League, and this man called Kelly Slater. There is so many. How in the world? Now, how in the world?
I like turtles.
Are there turtles in the desert?
There sure are.
There are.
There
Tortoises.
are tortoises. They're tortoises. Yeah. I like tortoises. Yeah. But Kelly Slater, honestly, the World Surf League does not. How do they not open up Lemoore, even just for pure greenwash PR? Ooh, I'm going to get them on this one. This is a good one. To all the local kids and say, hey, Kelly's pool is open. Come surf. 1 day a month. We are opening it up to the local community. To the kids, specifically. To specifically low-income kids. Come and enjoy the fruit of Kelly's loins.
I mean, that is so contrary to their actual interests. Aside from anything that they publicly state and promote, it is entirely contrary to their interests.
But here's the problem. See, people think, and I received a text message from somebody involved in wave pools a couple days ago who was real mad, again, like passive aggressively angry, right? It was just like seething below every line of the text, even though on the surface it was kind of like, hey man, but it was really angry. And I was like, I do not have a problem with wave pools. In fact, I love wave pools. Just don't tell me that they are green, or that they are saving the environment, or that they are like accessible to all, that they are a joy for the community. They're a benefit to the surrounding community, right? All those things are abject lies. They are more exclusive, way more in the ocean, and entirely exclusive altogether. And sure, compared to a golf course, compared to a really horrible thing, they're a lot better. But don't tell me it is a net positive for the environment, which is what the World Surf League and people involved try to do. They say this thing is a global good. It is not, and please stop lying to everyone. Just be honest. I'm a fan of the wave pool. Like, I do things all the time. We all do that destroy the environment. We're all hypocrites. We all try to be better. There's a messaging that they could do that's not just bald-faced lying. That's what makes me mad about the whole thing.
Yeah, it's absurd that they would even take that stance. I mean, it's clearly a business venture for anybody who's putting their money into wave pools. It is entirely an investment opportunity. Nobody does it because it's environmental opportunity. And in fact, if their interest was environmental, kind of, I don't know, whatever, they would do something entirely different. You know, that money could go a million other places. When you see the videos of them excavating the earth to build, and then all of those bulldozers, all of the hardware that they need to install in the ground, and then add the water in, it's an environmental disaster, you know, and it could only be justified with the potential of millions of dollars of payout because it's just such a huge undertaking.
I mean, and then, you know, not to pick on Kelly for how many shows have we done? Is this number
215, 210, something?
Number for pick on Kelly for the 215th show in a row. But Like I'm going to save the world by starting another clothing brand because that's what, and we've talked about this before, don't need to harp on it now. But like, again, what makes me, come on, just don't treat us like we're dumb. Please.
Yeah.
Please, your sandals. Can I just hear it one more time?
Sorry, I'm falling down on the job here.
I like turtles.
Somebody sent me, he posted this Instagram story of him like just got back from, I forget where he was in the world, and forgot to bring my Kelly sandals with me. And it's him filming his bare feet walking through his house and then sliding on his pair of sandals and walking out the door. And his commentary or text on the screen said something like, "Man, I can't believe I forgot my sandals on my last trip. I'm so thrilled to be back home with these." And somebody's like, "Can you please make a remix with this video and
I like turtles.
with a song with him doing this and writing this, because it would just be so good."
DJ Seaweed.
I know.
Are you listening?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song could be worked into that.
It's weird that, because Kelly, as the world's worst pitchman, oftentimes attaches his name to things, but then rarely promotes them, right? Like, I don't recall him actively promoting perps besides like maybe a stray Instagram post or whatever. So his investment or something in this Kelly sandal must be like significant, because I've seen him promote his dang Kelly sandal way more than I saw him promote endorphins or K-grips or anything else that he's been involved in.
I wonder if the investors in that project have seen that he wasn't super diligent about those other projects, and so maybe they built that into the contract where you have to post every other week or something like that.
It'd be smart. I wonder what sales on Kelly sandals are.
I know, that'd be interesting to know for sure. There's one more phone call that's actually adjacent to the conversation here.
Hey, the grit guys. If you're talking about is this surfing's lowest point, I sort of agree. The reasons why, I think there's just very few barriers to entry for surfing right now. Because if you think about it compared to, and I'm in my mid to late 30s, right? But, compared to past decades, getting a surfboard isn't going to a surf shop and the local guys kind of giving you the eye or maybe being nice. It's going to Costco or ordering something off backcountry.com. Finding a place to surf and learning that. There's no more work for it. It's going on Surfline or whatever website or blog and Reddit and them saying this place breaks at this and whatever. So now you've got the equipment, you know where to go. And then once you're out there, there's the localism just isn't there that strong anymore. And I'm from New Jersey, right? And I remember growing up and, there was localism. I saw a few fights and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's not so much anymore. I mean, if you get into a fight or you piss off someone, they're just going to call the cops. There's no reason to fight over waves. There never was. I don't agree with violence, but there's no threat of violence today. There's no consequences for dropping in on someone other than maybe yelling at them. And if I was going to yell at someone for dropping in on me, they're like, let's take it to the beach, I'm going to back off, because you know what? I'm not going to ruin a college degree because I got in a fight over some, waist-high New Jersey waves. So you can get boards easily. You can find out where to surf easily. There's minimal consequences for kookism out there. So, yeah, surfing has become something that is accessible to anyone. It's not regal for the most part, right? I mean, I still love it. I'm not bashing it, but the overall consensus and the decent swell in the summer, it's not regal. Anyone can do it. You can go out there and screw up without consequences. And I think that's why there's just so many people out there and why so many people think they can just grab a board and go out, Nobody's giving them looks. Who's this guy at my beach, And I think we should have some of that. I'm not promoting violence. I'm just saying localism, buying local boards, and keeping your trap shut when a certain sandbar pops up. That's pretty decent. That's my take.
If you juxtapose those two calls, it could be that the barriers of entry now are just not living near the beach, and that like the disenfranchised community having to jump through the geographical divide to get to the beach might breed the next generation of really ambitious surfers with grit and drive, kind of like Brazil has done for the World Tour, you know?
I was going to say, except the problem, or what Brazil has though, is like slums on the beach, right? So they have like those Rio, where who grew up
Yeah.
in wherever, whatever. Like, but there's poor kids next to beaches. But you're right. But again, there's poor kids next to Lemoore. If the World Surf League wants to have a youth boom, open up the pool, Kelly.
So they're not going to be in this conversation, but the Waco wave pool might be, you know, and
Yeah,
all of
I mean,
the other
they're-
ones that are happening
Sure.
around the world, because you can surf those for a reasonable rate. And, you know, those could become, and given the fact that it is such a predictable wave that you can practice a given trick on, and that the current professional surf tour is focused on that type of surfing, tricky, predictable surfing, it really kind of goes right hand in hand.
To his point again though is also I really like. I mean, I remember my first custom shape board was from Rock and Fig in Huntington Beach,
Yeah.
and I was so paranoid when I walked in there of like saying something wrong or give it like I was like, yeah, whatever you want, man. Like
Yeah.
where if
Totally
you had
uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable. So if you had like a core shop that was shaping boards for like the Waco Wave, say out in Waco, but where you got a vibe too, like you went in there and like I think that all of that stuff that he was saying, the caller was saying, between being timid, knowing your place, having to really force through that and prove yourself with both metal and skill, because there's no reason to get good now, sort of, or I don't see any you again, and not to beat Ben Gravy up for show 193, but you can surf like Ben Gravy real easy, right? For these kids watching Ben Gravy, like to get as good as Ben Gravy would take a kid putting some consistent time in for, 2 years, like
Yeah.
some decent time, and you could literally be as good as Ben Gravy, no problem. And so if that is the high bar, then yeah, we got a real problem for the future.
Totally. I do you remember we had a conversation years and years, maybe 4 years ago, about it might have been a listener email or something talking about good-looking surfers, and you and I did like this sociological. The conversation ended up being a sociological kind of study on why that is, and the conclusion that we came to was wealthy people live at the beach, and
Yeah.
so and then you track that a little bit and you're like, okay, well, if let's say rich dudes have money, they want to marry a trophy wife, and that trophy wife has good genetics, and maybe the dude comes from a lineage, and so he has good genetics, and those two people make a genetically beautiful baby. And so you have people who look like, I don't know what, Chloe Andino, I think, was the example, and Stephanie Gilmore was the example, and Sage Erickson, and those are a certain definition of beauty, or were at that time. And so that kind of made sense. Now we're seeing the reversal thing happen. We've lived long enough to where we're seeing a secondary wave, or a backlash even, to that thing, where it's all just older people who don't have kids. So all the kids are being pushed inland. And I was thinking about that first call where the guy was saying he grew up impoverished. His dad worked for the railroads and they all lived at the beach. So I was like, what is the sociological thing happening there? And I think that it was commerce happened inland. Commerce didn't happen on the coast, right? They happened in the city. And so if you lived if you worked for one of those corporations or industries, you had to be away from the coast. And eventually, I think we've gotten to the point where those people now own the coastline as a vacation home, maybe not even their main place of living. But it's interesting to see how all of that, the economics of it, have drastically influenced what happens in the surf world.
I mean, completely. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But again, as far as the ocean goes, yeah, it's hard. Like, I mean, I haven't even lived in Cardiff by the Sea that long. Like maybe, I don't know, what is it, 13 years going on? And Oceanside was still affordable.
Right.
It's like you could get, 13 years ago, you could still get, not on the beach, but in Oceanside, a short enough drive to the beach, you could still purchase a home for a reasonable California price. Like, forget about even smelling one of those homes today. Like, which is that swing in 13 years where, yeah, it seems like maybe if you really want to live by the beach and live cheap, then you've just got to get out of California. You could still go to Oregon, and you
Yeah.
could go to, wherever. You're not going to get maybe the best surf ever, but you can at least, and maybe those are going to be pockets of where there's going to be more talent coming out. Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny to hear the emailer and the caller's numbers, because those numbers sound so low to me. That caller was like, yeah, now that house is $850,000 and they tear it down. I'm like, you cannot buy an $850,000 home anywhere in Southern California near the beach. It'll be a $2 million house and they still tear it down.
It's
and
a
then they build
$2 million
$8
teardown.
Yeah, exactly. And the caller saying a $5,000 mortgage. I'm like,
Yeah, I was like $5,000. You
Yeah,
dream on.
yeah, that's so low, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you buy the $2 million and you put down 1.3 or something. Yeah, exactly. Which is just asinine. I don't know. I honestly do not know who all these people are that can afford these homes. I
mean,
think it's got to explode or implode at some point.
It's going to, I think. I mean, I think it's just entirely unsustainable. And I think the rage, like the hoarding of the houses. It's funny. I was thinking about this just the other day, like this wealth disparity, this wealth gap, right? I think there's always, of course, been rich and poor. But the wealth at the top, and I think rich people, we can just say, have probably always been bastards. But they used to do like all the Carnegie libraries, for example, right? Carnegie, I think, was a real dick, but built libraries, beautiful libraries, all across America, right? With his money. There was rich people of old, like rich industrialists, like built stuff, even if they were jerks for people. Now we got stinking Bezos and Zuck, who are like shooting their penises into space or like rolling around in jujitsu mats doing absolutely nothing. We have the worst billionaires I think history has ever seen.
Yeah, and there's more of them than history has ever seen, and they own a larger percentage of the wealth than history has ever seen.
I mean, and it's just
crazy.
seems like it's unsustainable, and it will. And they're so. Did you know Jeff Bezos? Did you know how tall he was?
No.
Give me a guess.
So without you prompting this as if it's an important, detail, I would have just guessed 5'10" or 5'11".
So he lists himself on Google as 5'7". I saw a picture. He is maybe slightly shorter than his girlfriend Lauren Sanchez, who's listed at 5'3". Both of those would be like debatably high, probably. Jeff Bezos may be under 5 feet tall.
That's insane.
Yeah. Imagine the kind
How
of
do you
weird.
know this? Just based on an image?
There was an image that just came out he was walking with Lauren Sanchez. I'll send you the picture. Colin Firth. I'll have to send it to you. I don't know. Here, let me go grab my phone real quick.
Okay.
It's a good one. This is worth it. This is worth a pause in the show here. Okay, here we go. Let me let's just go like this. So the man walking behind them in this picture, let me just tell you, just so you don't get confused and think it's a giant.
I'm looking at a red carpet photo, and yes, he is a couple inches. He's an inch or two shorter than his first wife.
Yeah, and so here we go. I just sent.
And Lauren Sanchez on a
Okay, so
on
do
a
you
red
see
carpet photo.
Do you see that photo there?
Yes.
Okay, so they're probably both in Hoka ones, right? So they're in a similar shoe.
But bulky. Those shoes
Yeah.
have a big rise on them.
A big bulk. Who's that? Who do you think that giant is behind them?
The security guard.
No. That is Colin Firth, the actor Colin
really?
Firth, who is not a giant, who's
Really?
a normal sized man. Look at how short they are compared to a normal sized man.
Yeah,
Jeff
yeah,
Bezos comes up basically to his belly button.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You've done your homework with this.
Yeah, it's good. It was worth the
Because you're right. He is the same height as Lauren Sanchez and even shorter than his first wife.
Yeah.
So if we know their height, then we can identify his height.
And so hers
And
is
you're
listed
triangulating with the people around them. Yep. I
with
get it.
Colin Firth. Yeah.
I get it. That is so funny. Well, hey, that is also that segue about rich people is perfect for our next conversation, which is, quote, San Diego surf school owner crushed by controversial investment giant BlackRock in reverse David versus Goliath horror story, exclamation point. This is a story that you wrote 2 weeks ago. It says Teven McManus, who has lived in Coronado for much of his life and runs the Coronado Surfing Academy. Much of his business comes from lessons through the iconic Hotel del Coronado. But his contract had just been terminated and handed over to the Jamie O'Brien Surfing Experience. Quote, McManus says the decision to terminate the contract wasn't made by the Hotel Del. He said the hotel staff had been great and they had had nothing but praise for his surf academy, but the bosses at the hotel have their own bosses. He says that Blackstone, the New York-based private equity giant that owns the Del, ultimately made the decision to replace him with a non-local company out of Hawaii. McManus says this is bad for business. Turns out, in addition to owning the Del, Blackstone also owns the Turtle Bay Resort in Oahu, which is the home to pro surfer Jamie O'Brien's surf school brand, the Jamie O'Brien Surf Experience. McManus says that it's because of the corporate relationship that this change was made. So,
I misidentified too as Blackstone as BlackRock. BlackRock is a different holding company, but still.
So, which is the correct name?
It's Blackstone is the one that
Blackstone.
actually owns, yeah. But, potato, potato.
So my question to you is, when did our surfing heroes become the man? Like in this story, Jamie O'Brien is the corporate bad guy here.
Yeah. Squishing the little guy. Squishing the guy just, trying to do his best. Owning the surf school.
And doing his best, by the way. Like by all reviews, publicly and within internally, like the hotel loves him, the staff loves him, the clients love him. Doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how well you've done your job. You're the small guy, and we have a bigger interest at play here, and we're going with the bigger interest. Of course, Jamie O'Brien is the beneficiary of that. He probably wasn't even part of the decision because his surf school, let's be honest, is probably not actively operated by him. He has, he's an owner who's using his name, but he's not actively. I think you even stated in the article, like he has an obligation to show up 8 times a year or something.
I think it was
like
6.
Right?
I think it was he had to show up 6 times a year.
But the question is like, okay, we've accepted Kelly Slater is going to do this, right? He's going to buy a majority share in a outsourced surfboard manufacturing label and then kind of come in and undercut domestic manufacturers on the market, whatever. We get that. It's Kelly. But for Jamie O'Brien to be wrapped up in this, it's when did our heroes become the man, and also can we fault them for it?
I mean, that's the thing is like, because Jamie would say, hey, I didn't make this decision, right? Like this, I did a deal with Blackstone or with Turtle Bay, Blackstone, I guess, through Turtle Bay. They like the product. This is a product they feel they can export to their other properties and da-da-da-da-da. It's not my fault, right? And he would certainly have a case in saying that. But when's somebody going to stand up and say, nope, I will not do that. It's late stage capitalism is where we're at. Like greed rules the day, and nobody's not going, because anybody's going to say, what? He's going to do that, so I better go get mine first, right? Like that idea, this late stage capitalism of I can't afford to be gracious. I can't afford to be kind. I can't afford to let somebody else cut in line, because then that's basically I'm going to die, right? Like I think that's the way people feel.
Well, it's so easy also just to point the finger of blame at the private equity group or the hotel itself or even the management of the hotel. Like Jamie O'Brien isn't going to accept the blame on this, and he's also not going to get in front of the train and be like, you know what? I'm putting my foot down for...
Enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm putting my foot down for the San Diego school owner, and I'm going to not participate in this deal. You should be... You know what I mean? Like, there's no point in him doing that. It's not in his interest. And he
unless he wanted to be like, I would love for somebody to say, look, I'm going to take a financial hit. I'm going to really, unless Jamie is... If Jamie's thing is, and I don't know that it's not this, but if Jamie was like, look, I want to go own all the surf schools in the world, to be honest. I want to have that's my next business venture is a surf school franchises everywhere. and you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet kind of thing, then I would think, oh, well, Jamie, then at least Jamie's the man and also saying, I'm the man. Like, what are you going to do about
Yeah.
it? I am the man. Yeah.
Which,
And
so the interesting or the curious thing to see there is if Jamie could actually become the man and scale that business up.
I'm sure he could. Like,
I don't know that he could.
Ben Gravy could too. I think you could do the Ben Gravy, like, and then it'd be, how funny would it be if the major surfing clash of the future, the Billabong versus Quicksilver of the future, is the Jamie O'Brien surfing experiences versus the Ben Gravy pineapple party. Like,
So I don't like, the reality is, and I think this is where we've landed with Kelly Slater making Turtle Moon sandals, is you can't do everything well. And so Jamie O'Brien makes a vlog. He, first of all, surfs phenomenally well. That's what his bread and butter is. And he has then spread that a little bit thin to make vlogs. So now he makes vlogs really, really well. Well, then he also is doing a surf school. That's going to get a little diluted. Now, guess what? He's also doing podcasts. That's going to be a little bit diluted. How good? I don't
can he
even
be at
think
a lot of things?
and I also don't think he ever listened to podcasts prior to getting involved in it. I don't think he ever went to a surf school prior to getting involved in it. So each of these things are a little bit removed from the people who were actually phenomenal at doing the thing in the first place. And so, yeah, he could do one on Oahu. That kind of makes sense. But now that it's being franchised out, I don't think he could scale that business. I mean, ultimately, what you need to do in order to scale that business is to hire the best people in that space. What he would have been smart to do is hire Tevis McCannis, or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah.
McCannis is his last name for sure. If he would have hired McCannis to be like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you out of your surf school and you're going to come work for Jamie O'Brien now. That would have been the right way to scale that business.
I mean, yeah, I wonder how, if whatever Tevis, what his name was, would have got a
T-Ben,
buyout.
maybe?
Yeah, if he would have got a buyout, I mean, I wonder if he would have taken it, whatever, but let's assume he would. It's either your contract is getting canceled anyway.
Right.
And
right.
so I'm going to come do you a solid, buy you out, you run this thing, you hire your people, you are in charge, and then I'll come and do my 6, appearances.
Yep.
We will use my social media platform to get you even more, we can scale this thing now. Yeah, it would have been the smart thing. A smart thing
interesting.
and a kind thing.
Yeah, it's interesting too to see like capitalism infect somebody like Jamie O'Brien. And I'm not saying infect as if it's even bad, because I'm not convinced that it is bad. I'm okay with capitalism. But for Jamie to have the success that he's had, by the way, hard-earned success. I know he took a bunch of lumps. He lost a house at some point. So for him to navigate the complexities of the ever-changing surf industry and to find immense profit and to work super hard to continue that profit model, but now be infected by it to where he's like, expand in all ways. Every chance I get, expansion. Whereas Tech or Teven, sorry, McCannis, let's be honest, getting that gig with that hotel was a boon in the first place.
Yeah.
Like if you're small time, have a little surf school, and you get that contract, that was probably more than you ever designed and more than you really could have bid off on your own. But congratulations for him. But now here's an opportunity. Jamie O'Brien's coming to town. And are you going to get bit by that same bug and infected by it and scale up? Or are you going to just get pushed aside and eaten by the machine and then angry at the machine,
I mean, for sure. I will say for Jamie, who would have ever seen Jamie O'Brien as the greatest surfing, creative of our time, basically? Like, really seeing where the wind was blowing and, charting a course. Like, I would have, back in the day, you would have thought Jamie would have been a pipeline specialist flash in the pan. That would be a name that we no longer knew, right?
There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them.
Yeah, and that cool, he made videos of himself, and so that was, nobody was really doing that back then, like that, just, right in the middle of the Taylor Steele era, doing solo star powered projects of just Jamie, right? And then, oh, okay, cool, that worked. And then, but just the way he's moved is, he's got a brain on him. That's for sure. He is moving in kind of the fringy ways that get ignored, like surf schools. Nobody was thinking, oh, surf schools are, let's go start one.
So I totally agree, and it's super admirable because when you hear him talk about it, he was being laughed at every step of the way.
Yeah.
Like surf culture was the last to go selfie mode and to self promote. Like surf culture was always like deflecting any. I mean, look at Dane Reynolds. He was the last vestige of that from the past, but it was just all about being demure and to never wear flashy colors or anything.
Being
And
the cool
Jamie,
guy.
yeah, and Jamie was like, F that. I'm going to wear the brightest thing. I'm going to be the most obnoxious. I'm going to talk directly to the camera. And everybody was laughing at him. And by the way, he shirked all the mainstream sponsors as well. He was among the first to do that. So everybody else who was still fighting for ever dwindling contracts from core brands, Jamie's like, screw that.
I'm building an empire.
Exactly. Like, I will take money from anybody and anywhere, and I will do it on a one video at a time basis or one Instagram post at a time basis, because that's the way of the modern world. And he's laughed his way to the bank the whole time.
I mean, yeah, I've talked about him on the show before, but Jamie O'Brien's old manager, Andrew Long, there's a whole movie to be made of Andrew Long.
And his shortcomings and missteps, or his guiding
Andrew
him
Long,
into the...
Andrew Long was a nutbag, an insane person, a crazy man. He was like Colonel Parker in to Elvis, but he didn't control Jamie in that way. But he was just wacky with wacky ideas. But Jamie, there was something there in those early years that fully worked and pushed Jamie. And Andrew hasn't managed Jamie for 2 decades, but there was something. Both of them saw it coming 2 decades ago, and I was sitting there thinking, "You guys are nuts!" The surfing is this monolithic culture that is going to continue. And they were. Yeah, Andrew Long was pitching me digi camo is like the fabric of the future. Everything's going to be digi camo, so we're going to make digi camo trunks or something. I was like, "You guys are out to lunch," but no, they were both semi right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Colonel Parker, quick detour. How great is it to see Tom Hanks play the villain for once?
Yeah, it's good. But man, I've loved that movie, but I've had as much Tom Hanks I think I can take for the rest of my life. I don't think I'll be able to watch a Tom Hanks movie ever again, as long as I live.
Funny. I don't feel that way at all, but I just thought that was such an unlikely casting, and it worked.
It did work.
Yeah.
Man, but yeah, I've reached peak Tom, and I'm not anti-Tom either. I just think over this many years of watching Tom Hanks movies, I've had enough. There's no more room in the cupboard for a Tom Hanks movie.
That's understandable. Well, hey, moving on, but kind of in a related vein of corporate, whatever. WSL is running the Oi Rio Pro right now. I think we're on day 6 or 7 of lay days. Which we don't need to belabor, but there is a call that is worth discussing from a longtime listener. Call.
Chaz, David, it's James calling in. It just seems like the WSL is down, and they're down bad right now. They have this whole Saudi deal coming, and I saw an article on Stab that they pitched the idea of Saudis maybe even buying a WSL, giving it a little glow up, maybe having an actual dream tour again, versus what we see here in frickin' Brazil, this knee-high ankle slappers, not the dream tour. But my question to you all in the grit community is this our chance to, stage a boycott of the WSL, kick them while they're down, put that final bullet in the horse, and get this thing moving on to greener pastures? Do you think we have that kind of leverage here within the grit community? And if so, what's the best route that we should take moving forward? You are our generals, and we are your humble servants. Viva la revolution. Keep up the work.
Now this is a beautiful communist paradise here. There is no one better than another. We are all equals. But yeah, I mean, I think and I'll fault myself directly. If I had more of the Jamie O'Brien in me, was more entrepreneurial, if we were like, put our effort where our mouth was, we could fully, now is the time is completely ripe. I think you couldn't just put the bullet in the horse. What you would have to do is make an alternative product that was better, right? And that's making an alternative product that is better is not hard right now, but it would take a lot of effort. You would have to get, 10 of the best non WSL surfers bought in to even a 3-stop tour, right? Like, of 3 of the best waves. Like, it still takes money, it takes effort, but now would be the time to do it. And I think that's what would force the WSL into a extremely compromised position. And right now, they feel extremely compromised, but they continue to tick along because there's absolutely no alternative. And I think, like, watching Eric Logan's reemergence, right? Like, what a weirdo. Like, he went dark for uncharacteristically dark. Hadn't done that on Instagram for a long time. Went like 3 weeks without a post after this Brazil, the surf ranch blow up. Now he's in Brazil, like, being the goofball again, taking people on tours of the, whatever he's doing, being like goofy Eric, except without comments, turned comments off on his posts, so you can't comment at him anymore or say anything. And I guess that's the gamble, or that's what they're banking on, is the surf audience is so dumb and so goofy that they're like, that's who's out there for this, right? And they can grow that audience. That the core clearly doesn't like them. The core will watch it because it's the only show in town, but the audience to grow is the checked out happy people, like, more or less retards.
Well, that's cancelable, by the way.
No, slow. I said slow in French.
Multilingual. Impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. Should we boycott the WSL? The answer is no. The only thing worse for their business than us talking crap for the 4th year in a row is us being apathetic, to be perfectly honest, you know? And that's really what they have earned at this point, is our apathy. So we've often talked about there's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, us criticizing them incessantly for 4 years has only kept their name in the news cycle when, let's be honest, they generate maybe 5 to 10 newsworthy heats in a given year, where they run literally over 700 heats a year. There's 5 to 10 of them that are newsworthy. And yet you and I talk about them kind of constantly. So I think that if we needed their service, that they are providing in the way that society needs maybe law enforcement or a judicial system, then we'd have to protest to bring attention to the fact that they're completely and utterly inept, and that they are derelicting their duty. But the truth is that we actually don't need them at this point. I think we've realized that if the WSL goes away tomorrow, we honestly wouldn't even notice. Like, I don't even get up in the morning and check to see if the Brazil contest is running.
I would only be sad not to have them to make fun of anymore. Like, that's my only bummer, would be they were a really, really, really funny joke.
I mean, and that's why we've talked about them for 4 years instead of quitting after the first year or two, it became a farcical spectacle that was fun. But at this point, even that's not even fun. And so they've earned our apathy. And the other reality is, if they did go away and there wasn't the adjacent tour that you're talking about, we would still get to see John Florence and Kelly Slater surf, because they have their own production teams that are traveling with them. And here's what's crazy. We'd actually see them surf better waves throughout the course of the year. And they would be surfing the quality of waves that we see Mason Ho surfing and that Nathan Florence are surfing. And I would also make the argument that Gabriel Medina would actually become a better surfer if he wasn't, and a more well-rounded surfer, if he wasn't directing his immense talent towards the completely restrictive judging criteria that they've got him operating under.
I mean, here's the true thing too, is that I don't know if the World Surf League actually thinks it crowns the best surfer in the world. I guess ostensibly it crowns the best World Surf League surfer of the
Yeah.
year. But we don't need points to know who the best surfer is, right?
No.
Dane Reynolds never won a championship tour title. Dane Reynolds was for, I don't know, 3 years, the best surfer in the world. Everybody knew it. It was basically beyond
Kelly
dispute-
Slater stated
dispute.
it. Everybody stated
like,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we, like, the surf community knows we don't need points. We don't, and, of course, it's fun to discuss who is the best, right? And then without the W Surf League, without the WSL, everybody knows if there's a kind of, ooh, but what about him? You could put clips next to each other and debate, and that's fun, right? Like, we literally don't need them. I need them badly because I think it's still hilarious. I haven't gotten tired yet. I laughed this morning. I woke up to the news that the U.S. Open of Surfing has a new sponsor, David Lee Scales.
I never clicked on the article, so who is it? I don't know yet.
I was so curious to see. So Vans was the sponsor, right? Vans, a blue chip kind of company, having hard times right now, losing massive market share, really overinvested, or VF Corp, way overinvested in streetwear and now is taking it on the chin. Vans losing a bunch of money. But so Vans is out, which is it now the Nike US Open of Surfing like it used to be? Is it the, Budweiser? Is it AT&T? Is it, who is it?
Hurley?
It's Wallex. The Wallex US Open of Surfing, David Lee Scales.
Who's Wallex?
Well, thank you for asking.
What?
Wallex, I think, is a digital wallet, maybe, but an off-brand one, but like one of the ones you clearly haven't heard of. It's
Oh my
an
gosh.
off-brand digital wallet, and this is a World Surf League press release too. By the way, this is not like a U.S. Open of Surfing is a distinct entity. This is so. I don't know how you can keep doing this stuff, but I chuckled so loudly. I got more internal laughs and external laughs from the Bailey ladder sponsorship than I had from this is a World Surf League is now a South Park episode. We get to enjoy a South Park episode rolling season to season. Goes on and on and on.
I mean, we never even talked about the Cup of Noodles sponsorship at Surf Ranch.
But that Cup of Noodles at least is a recognizable company that makes, that's one, I'm not even mad about that. Cup of Noodles makes, a product that's been around for a long time. Probably it's a good demo to target theoretically if surfing was still young of I told you I went and bought Cup of Noodle for 17 cents where, I'm not even mad about that one. That's like a almost blue chip company compared to what they get now. Wallex and Bailey ladders, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre, and they're spinning it as even release it. We got a new one, guys. Hey, guys, this is if Wallex comes and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you whatever you're, since nobody else is picking this up, I will do it for half of what you're asking." If you're Dirk Ziff, at some point you say, "You know what? No. I'm just gonna call it the US Open of Surfing because it's more embarrassing for the brand to have a title sponsor that nobody's ever heard of. Like when it's who sponsors PGA Tour events? It's always whatever
Rolex, Land Rover.
Yeah, we could, or just give it to Rolex for free. Just say, hey, Rolex, would you be the title sponsor? We're gonna give this to you for literally free. Can we just call it the Rolex US Open of Surfing? That
would be a way better move for the WSL brand.
And Rolex would say no, but you could find some blue chip to take the title sponsorship for real minimal. Vair watches. Now there we go.
Vair would be the ultimate get for the WSL. Vair watches.
And that wouldn't even be that wouldn't make me mad. I would say, sweet, Vair's coming up. So if they went to Vair and said, hey, Vair, what's your budget? Let's work together to make you the title sponsor. We like your product. We think it's good. We think it's a good fit, blah, 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 and something like that. But Wallex is, I just think, okay, you guys are not only funny, but really one more circle of the drain down it.
Yeah, I think what that specifically is, it's different than Bailey's. It's different, Bailey ladders. It's different than Cup of Noodles. I think Wallex it's probably got a bunch of VC money, and it's stupid money, you know what I mean? And it's not the top flight brand. If it was Coinbase, let's say, they have smart people running Coinbase making those decisions. They're going to use their marketing spend smartly. Whereas the second or third or fourth tier of that category, they've got the VC money and they just need to spend it on marketing and growing market share. And so they throw it at stupid things like this. And WSL's like, we'll take stupid money because we'll take it from anywhere. We're not making decisions that are in the best interest of our longevity. We just need the money right now. And so, yeah, we'll partner with you, even though Wallex is going to be out of business next year. They need to spend that marketing spend.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. It's really, really, really funny though.
It is. It's unbelievably absurd at this point. Like, these stories come out weekly or whatever it is, and I could never have guessed the absurdity of this week's story. Even though last week's was absurd, I wouldn't have guessed at the absurdity of this week's story. And Eric Logan, by the way, we should discuss shutting off his comments on his Instagram is such a weak move. And this comes directly after, by the way, we talked about his posts were averaging 40 comments or whatever it was for years and years and years. And then the Surf Ranch debacle, he posts, or he, on behalf of the WSL, puts out the press release, or the open letter, I should say, responding to Gabriel Medina's Instagram post. But he doesn't put out that public letter on his Instagram feed. He puts it out on the WSL's website, where there's nowhere for the community to respond to the letter. So instead, the community responds on his personal account on a post that was unrelated to the open letter. And that got 1,600 comments when I last looked at it. So normally he gets 40. Now he gets 16 about something that actually matters. None of that other stuff mattered. Now people have an opinion about something, and it matters. So they vocalize. And what does he do? He disappears for 3 weeks and then shuts off the ability to respond.
It's so weak. It is so weak. And if he was going to delete his Instagram from that, I would have said, great. We didn't need your Instagram anyway. We didn't need you behind the scenes getting uncomfortably close to your employees. Like, nobody needs that. Just cut the thing, right? Like, you don't need it. There's CEOs don't need, I don't see Jeff Bezos, even though he's a full-on kook, I don't see him on Instagram promoting stuff, right? Like, just, you don't need to be that guy. You're not the face of the brand. But yeah, to keep it up, to come back with a rebrand of don't talk to me. Like, I will continue to spray you with a hose of bullshit.
Yeah.
And now I put tape on your mouths. So it's fun.
Totally absurd. Well, speaking of watches, VayerWatches.com, save yourself 15% with our promo code, which is Splendor15. And by the way, I was thinking about watches as I've been paying attention and talking about Rolex and stuff. Watches remind me of wine in the way that the icon brands charge this exorbitant premium for their product, for the name. You know what I mean? Like there's so many great wines made in the world now that literally you can find for $10 a bottle, and they're every bit as good as $100 bottles of wine. It's just that they don't have the name, the cachet. And the same thing goes with watches, where I was reading through some of the reviews on Vayer's website, and they were, I am a watch collector. I own these fancy watches, but god dang, I wear the Vayer every single day. Because ultimately what a watch comes down to is the materials that it's made out of, and the, accuracy of the, I don't know what you call the unit inside that actually keeps the time, the movement that keeps the time. Right. And so once you have a movement that is flawless and the materials that are high quality and durable and look great, that's what a watch is made out of. And so that's what Rolex is doing. That's what the other brands are doing. It's just they're made in Switzerland, and they have the 200-year legacy. So they charge thousands and thousands of dollars. But the reality is, made in America is good, and a couple $100 is phenomenal. And it's that's what Vayer is. They've solved it.
I set my Apple Watch. I don't have an Apple Watch, but I set my. What did I set to? I set something to my Vayer. I used my Vayer watch time. Oh yeah, it was my downstairs oven because it was off, and I didn't look at the computer. I looked at my Veyer watch and set my digital clock to my Veyer. And
Yep.
no joke.
I don't know if I told you this, but my car, the digital read in my car is off 2 or 3 minutes every single month.
Yeah.
And it's like ridiculous. Of all things that would operate, digital should work better, right? And it doesn't.
Yeah.
The Veyer stays synced with my phone and the car is off. So anyways, we love them. VeyerWatches.com. We do tools to live by. Listeners write in and ask for tools to live by. And here we go. From a listener, quote, guys, I need some clarification. My entire surfing life, 30 plus years, I've always thought that when you're on a wave and somebody takes off in front of you, they snaked you. I've been corrected a few times since that. The aforementioned action is actually called dropping in. And somebody dropping in on somebody and snaking you is backpedaling. Which is correct in your all opinion? Thanks, Joey from West Florida's Gulf Coast, where we don't get waves anyways. End quote.
So yes, he's exactly right. A snake is a back paddle. A snake is a position, a dirty position in the lineup, a sneaky position change in the lineup. A drop in is a drop in.
So a snake was Kelly Slater versus Shane Beshin back at the U.S.
Yes.
Open in 1998.
I like turtles.
Exactly. But like calling a plastic adhesive a Band-Aid or a soda a Coke, I think snake sounds cooler and is cooler and has become in the parlance universal for bad behavior as it relates to wave catching.
Right,
So,
but
like,
these bad behaviors do need distinctions because there
Totally.
is a bunch of nuance. So that's where
Totally.
these names come in.
And Buddy just got on finished a sailing race. He was on a sailing team. And so much of sailing is about precisely calling the thing what it actually is, right? Not to make a bland distinction between lines and ropes and knots and pulleys, right? Like each thing has its name. And it has its name because you need specific, exact information and you need to react to that. Same is true in surfing. So I would encourage all of us not to be lazy and use the, snake as a generic for bad behavior. A snake is a back paddle. A drop-in is a drop-in.
Yeah, well, and I like it because the back paddle actually takes intention. It takes a diabolical desire to find what is technically the deeper position, but through snake, whatever, devious means. And that's the equivalent to a snake in the grass.
It is, and worse still, like with a drop-in, it is ignorant and bad usually. Oftentimes. Sometimes it's purposeful. Like when it's purposeful, it's like a real aggressive F you.
Right.
When it's done accidentally, it's just an accident, right? Where a snake is sneaky. A snake is, you are theoretically, when that wave breaks, you are in the correct position for that wave. That wave is on the surface yours, except you were correct by devious means.
Yes. Well, I think that we should find another animal, maybe serpent or reptile even, that can be used as the moniker for the drop-in.
You know what it is?
A donkey?
I think it's a turtle. He turtled me.
Turtled me because turtles are somewhat oblivious and they lumber in the path.
I like turtles.
They get in the way. They get in the way a lot.
They get in the way. I like it. It could be a turtle. Somebody turtled me. Not the sharpest, though. I feel like there could be one that's a little bit more.
Let's put this out. Let's put this out to the community. Let's put this out to the community. What animal is a known getter in the wayer of?
And also, there's there's got to be an element of obliviousness, and then sometimes that animal is downright
Angry,
intentionally being a butt.
Yeah. Maybe it's cats. He catted me. Donkeys, I think, are cats are always too. Cats would be the same as snaking.
And they're not that oblivious.
No, that's what I'm saying. Cats are like tricky.
Yeah. So, and even if it was a cat, we can't say catted me. There would have to be something that a cat does that we can use as the phrase.
Yeah. It's going to take some time here
Oblivious.
because we're making a whole new term for surfing. That's
I mean, like a wolf. Like a wolf is going to be diabolical and try to kill something. So it could be wolf, but they're not that oblivious. There
No,
needs to be an animal that's oblivious, like a sloth. But a sloth is
Rhino?
never diabolical.
What about a rhinoceros?
Rhinoceros. Oh, hippopotamus
He
is
hippoed me.
the most dangerous animal on the planet.
true.
Little known fact. And they are
True.
big enough to be oblivious and lumbering, but they're also incredibly fast when they want to be. This could
I
be
like
a hippo
hippo.
related.
I like hippo. He hippoed.
There's that
got
classic
hippo.
Mitch Hedberg joke, which is, what if a hippopotamus is just a really cool opotamus? Classic Hedberg. Okay, let's go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with a listener call that explains very well how to pick a perfect watermelon, and then a listener line or listener email, and then barrel or not.
Great.
Chas Smith, let's just real quickly acknowledge how great drinkag1.com/surf is.
ag1.com/surf is... I've been on a tear here, David Lee Scales. I have not been home for, I don't even know how long. Literally not home for weeks. Healthy as a hippopotamus because ag1.com/surf.
I know. So I am terrible at actually forming habits that are good for me. You know, like habits are easy when it's surfing because it's fun. But if it's like a disciplined thing like going to the gym or something like that, I'm just like, my discipline wanes very, very quickly in the process, even if I know it's good for me. I think the reason I've been able to do AG1 for 2 years now daily is because it's super simple. So it just simplifies the process. It doesn't actually feel like work. And the benefits are so noticeable that it actually makes me enjoy it.
You feel good.
Yeah, feel good. It's noticeably different. And so it's like, man, it's no work at all. And the benefits are obvious. So boom, habit formed.
ag1.com/surf.
Drink ag1.com/surf.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, drink it.
All right, we're back, Chaz. Let's go to listener line just to get some produce advice follow up.
Hey guys, this is Gavin. I'm listening to your show right now. Barrel or Not was knocking on watermelons, and I've worked produce for a few years. And this time of the year, we had three varieties of watermelons, and we were cutting them like no one's business. And there is a proper way from the farmers to find a good watermelon. The sound that you hear when you knock, if it's really muted, it's overripe. There's too much water inside, and the thing is going to be mush, and it's not going to taste good. You want more of a high ping. When you knock on a watermelon, you have to pick the watermelon out of the bin and then give it a knock. And when you're even looking for a good watermelon in the bin, if you see small little black dots of like nectar oozing from the shell or the skin, those are good signs. Farmers call them bee stings. And then you want a good solid yellow dot where the watermelon was on the ground. That's where the watermelon lay when it grew. And with that high pitched ting, some bee stings, I guarantee I can pick you a good watermelon. Cantaloupes and honeydews, give it a little squeeze on the butt or the end of it, and the nose test. Same with pineapple. Smell the base. If it smells sweet, it's good, and you don't want it too soft on the end. You want it more kind of like an avocado, just barely squeeze the top. You feel any give, that thing's perfect. And that's your produce advice. Thanks, guys. Keep it up.
Hot melon talk.
I love our community so much. There's nothing we can't ignorantly say that won't get beautifully, gently corrected from an expert.
I mean, literally, from dental advice to
Anything.
psychiatric advice to everything.
Legal advice, produce
legal
advice.
advice.
There's nothing. Honestly, there is no asinine thing that we have stated. And nobody ever comes out mad. They're not like, you guys are a couple of retreads. This is dumb. You are dumb and causing problems. Everybody is just like, hey, man, heard it? And so the truth is, and then just delivers the truth.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate it. And I picked the best watermelon of the season yesterday based on this advice.
Perfect.
I actually did some more research as well since last week. There's a couple of things you want to look for. He was talking about that yellow spot from where it sits on the ground. That's actually called the cream spot. And so you want that cream spot, the yellower, the riper. So if it's just white, it's underripe. Yellow, ripe. So look for symmetry too. So, okay, well, hey, this listener feedback came via email. Somebody said, hey, I wanted to share a little adventure of mine. Longtime surf friends and I had while on a fishing and surfing day trip to the trails at San Onofre almost 40 years ago. While not the level of a Dick Metz story, it was one of the more amusing incidents in our group's beach history. Over a span of the years, going back to the early 60s, it stands out among the many, many surfing memories. The main instigator of this trip has now passed on, but the other two of us, now in our 70s, are still around and long removed from our surfing days. Our crafty friend suggested that we drive up to Trail 6 at the bluffs south of San Onofre for an early morning fishing and surfing day. We arrived in the early morning when nobody else was around yet. We set up our gear at the base of the trail and set about surf fishing. As the marine layer dissipated and the sun came out, we paddled out to surf. By then, people were coming down the trail and we noticed that they all marched south onto the northern end of the Camp Pendleton Marine Base. We thought nothing of it until later in the morning when we saw the Marines escorting them back into the San Onofre zone. Shortly after, our original group of Marines, an additional group of Marines, showed up on the cliff, and we got worried that they were protecting some security concern. That's when the beachgoers got close enough to us to realize they were all nude. More showed up, and by the afternoon, there were at least 50 of them, many of whom were nice-looking young women, all nude. We tried our best not to stare, but being young and from a heavily clothed culture, we were mesmerized. Our crafty friend soon went for it. He dropped his board shorts and approached two young women. Myself and our other friend hung out on the beach and wore our board shorts throughout the rest of the afternoon. I think it was more out of concern about being naked in front of my surfing friends than I was concerned about being naked with strangers. We came to find out that our friend had known all along that it was a clothing optional beach, and that that's why he insisted on arriving so early, was just so that he could be entertained by watching it all unfold in front of us. My memory of this was sparked by a recent podcast on the Grit concerning the topic. Longtime listener of your podcast, Randy, retired and living in Tennessee.
It really, truly makes me almost weep with joy. That story was great. Thank you, Randy. But that we have 70-year-olds in Tennessee listening in. That is awesome. That is totally awesome.
That was really surprising to me too. I get emails. I'm really totally agree with you. That's so fascinating.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah. And I do love that too. I mean, I don't know if that is still a nude beach, but I remember when I learned that was a nude beach when I was in high school, and just the idea of like, should we go there? Should we not go there? Yeah. The lore, and the lure too involved.
It's great.
Great. All right. Well, hey, Barrel or Nah, brought to you by Buell. I've got something exciting to announce. We are going to give away a Buell wetsuit in 1 month at the end of July.
You were in luck, listener. I've been wearing my Buell wetsuit and loving my Buell wetsuit. I don't know how you can make a better wetsuit than a Buell, to be honest.
I agree. And they're like, look, we're going to give away a listener to your guys' fans, your guys' listeners, however you want to do it. And so what I think we should do is, we've been doing those Pros in the Wild stories. Send them in. And at the end of the month, we're going to pick our favorite one. So send in Pros in the Wild starting now. We will read them in the next 3 weeks throughout the month of July. And then in the final week of July, you and I will decide which was our favorite. And maybe we'll even post them on Instagram and like get an Instagram poll. You could weigh in on which was your favorite throughout the month. And then whoever submitted that story will win a Buell wetsuit. And guess what? Pick any wetsuit off their site. There's no restrictions. So any wetsuit off BuellSurf.com, and we'll give it to you for free.
Love it.
I know, so good. And then if you want to purchase a suit, by the way, the promo code is BuellGrit25 to save 25%.
And they're going to figure this out before, like someday they're going to figure this out. This 25% is too much. So take advantage of this opportunity while you can.
Totally. They're losing money at that point.
Yeah.
All right. First barrel or nah comes from a longtime listener and supporter.
Hey, David and Chaz. This is Kevin from up in Ventura. Calling with a barrel or not today, but before that, a quick public service announcement for anyone that's not subscribing to the Grit. I've been enjoying my Roger Hines surfboard that I won I think last year. Amazing board, and super stoked that I won that with the gift package. So get on it, people. Let's support the podcast. And on to the barrel or not. So been spending a lot of time in waiting rooms, doctor's offices, places that are typically quiet, and people that leave their ringers on. And I'm not so bothered by the ringing, but a lot of people have those Ring doorbells, and some will be walking in and out of their house. So you're sitting somewhere where it should be quiet, and that thing just keeps going and going and going. Even have it happen in a bunch of business meetings, like just turn the thing off. But wanted to get your take on that. And then a side barrel or not, if you're a podcast host and you do not turn your ringer off and you can hear the messages pinging through, is that a barrel or not? Not pointing fingers at anyone, but thought I would share. Anyways, keep up the mediocre work. Talk to you later.
Wonderful. So, Kevin, it's a no barrel for ring on. Unless you're 70 or up, right? Like if you are 70 years old and you just got a cell phone, like you're stumbling around with it, you don't even know what vibrate is. My only time my ringer's on basically is if I'm like going to sleep at night and the child is having a sleepover, and so I'll, in case there's some kind of problem and I need to wake up, something like that. In a public place, there is no time or need for any ringer ever, unless you're senile. That's thing one for me. No barrel.
Yeah, absolutely no barrel. The ringer on is an absolute offense to society. It was one thing we had ringers on our phones because it was private and it was in your house, and you needed to be notified because if you missed the call, there was no other way to know that person. And then eventually we had answering machines. So then it wasn't so much a threat that you were going to miss the call. But at this point where we're all existing in society, in public together, and the phone is in your pocket, and you'll notice that the call was missed because there's an identifier, and then they can also leave a message and they can also text message you. There is absolutely no reason to have your ringer on. If we all had our ringers on for every notification on our phone, it would be pings nonstop all day, and it would be a cacophony of noise. Nobody would get anything done. It'd be incredibly annoying. So just like you're not supposed to bring your boombox to the beach or on a hike with you because you're disrupting everybody else's serenity, if you're the one who has your ringer on in public, you are the one disrupting everybody else's serenity. And I will a little bit co-sign what Chaz said, which is there is a certain age divide here where if you are of an older generation...
Like if you're senile, really. Like if you just can't sort stuff out.
But here's my problem with those people as well, is the phone starts ringing, they look at it, you can shut that ring off by just tapping the down volume button on the side of the phone and then assess who's calling and whether or not you want to answer. But what I often see that older generation do is the phone starts ringing,
and
they stare at it, it continues ringing. They're deciding what they want to do. It's on the fifth ring and they're still looking at it. Then they put it down while it's still ringing, deciding they don't want to answer, and let it go through its entire cycle until the voicemail picks it up. I'm like, oh, why didn't you silence your phone? We all know now all that it's doing is annoying everybody in the space. Shut the ringer off. And I'll tell you what, if I wanted to pay you back, I would turn my ringer on. I have notifications going. I get 1,000, literally 1,000 notifications a day. And I could out annoy you if I were a dick and I wanted to. but I'm not. I'm just going to quietly judge you.
Here's the thing, though, with Kevin's second point, and let's just be honest, there's a lot of things old people should not do. Old people should, we'll just leave it at that. But the notification during the podcast, I totally hear you, and I am sorry for each time I've pinged. Usually it's because I forgot to, which again, I am a senile old person at that point. If I am not professional enough to put my do not disturb on before podcast, then I cannot judge grandma in the waiting room.
Yeah. Well, pull back the curtain a little bit for Kevin there. I've got a laptop going right now and I've got my phone. My phone is always silenced, but sometimes I forget to disconnect the iMessage app on the computer, on the laptop. So the texts are coming through on that.
Here's a quick, though, pro tip for you, David Lee. You just turn your phone on do not disturb, and then it'll stay do not disturb on your computer too.
Boom, got it. I was going to say the other thing is you can just shut the volume off on your Mac, but
you can't.
You need to hear the volume of the person that you're talking to. So that's
it's do not disturb is the workaround there.
There you go. And the other thing, though, pulling back the curtain more, is even if I remember to do that, my guest that I might be interviewing on Surf Splendor is new to tech, and they might not know to do that, and it's hard for me to communicate to them how to do that. So that's some of what happens. Or sometimes we just forget to do it. But thank you for that, Kevin. I think that leaving your ringer on, I cannot believe we've never addressed that before, because that has quietly annoyed me for years now. Every single week
you, Kevin.
I encounter it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Barrel or non number 2? Wrapping your leash around your fins.
This is a tough one. I'd never do it. Ever do it. Every once in a while, I'll like trip on my leash. I'll be like having the cuff in my hand and the leash is dragging too low. You know, I don't have that one extra loop on it. And so I'll like do the stumble. And so I totally see a function behind it, even though it completely looks to me like you are an anal retentive person. Like the person who tightly wraps, that like I can pretty much say you are an A-type, like everything needs to be in order, obsessive compulsive, borderline. But there's a real function to it. But just like there is a real function to being neat and orderly too, I suppose.
But the weird thing about this one is there's no reason not to do it, except that it's kooky.
Yeah.
Like
and it takes some time.
Barely. It barely takes any time at all. It is, I think the reason I don't do it is just because it's a kooky move. For some reason, it was identified, I think newbies do it. And so then it just becomes, and you're right, it takes a little bit of additional effort. So you see new people taking the time. At some point you don't do it, and so you just stop doing it, and you don't want to be identified as a kook, because there's really no reason not to do it otherwise.
But I'm going to
I never do it, though.
I never do it. So I'm going to stay the course and say it is a no barrel.
Yeah, I'm going to go no barrel too.
Yeah, it's just it's a kook identifier.
Well, the reality is also I never trip on my leash like you're talking about. I always make sure to wrap it
at least one wrap in, or like
just exactly. Or I'm taking boards out of my garage to put in the back of my car, and it drags. I let it drag if it's not in threat of catching something, and if it is in threat of catching something, I just wrap it up in my hand, and that's enough. You know what I mean? Like you don't actually need to wrap it around the fins.
Yeah, it's a anal retentive marker that doesn't. Yeah, you just need to drop that.
I was thinking too, back in the day, leashes are much better now and they don't coil, but back in the day, if you wrapped it around the back of your board, it would kink into a certain coil that would then
catch your foot.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of bent into that shape forevermore once you had it kind of trained in that way. And so that was a problem, but not so much a problem anymore. Anyways, stop wrapping your leashes.
Yeah, no barrel.
Final barrel or not, in light of 4th of July coming up this next week, you're going to be at dining environments where there's lots of shared food, things all on one plate together. Maybe it's watermelon, maybe it's dip. Barrel or not, double dipping.
Oh, double dipping is such a no barrel. Unless you enjoy that dip so much that you want it all for yourself. If it's like a power move of like this,
you're going to contaminate the dip.
this ranch dip is so good, I want nobody else to have it. I'm going to double dip. If that's your move, then I'm going to say power move. Good on you. If you're accidentally doing it, though, or just like not consciously doing it, come on. Be an adult human being.
Okay, let me modify this because I think everybody would agree double dipping with the end of the chip that you had in your mouth is a no barrel. So let me modify it by saying
The flip.
the flip. You go back of the chip. You take one dip, bite, flip the chip, back of the dip goes back in the dip. That chip had been in your mouth, but that side had not been in your mouth.
It's true, but that side had been in your fingers, which, while not as bad as your mouth, is not exactly. It's like you dipping your finger into the dip, too, right? Where that would be, if you saw somebody dipping their finger into the dip and then smearing it on something, even if they're not going to put it in your mouth, you would say that is uncouth, which is essentially what you're doing when you are taking the handle of your food and dipping that handle into the dip. Like,
That's a good point.
The thing is with dip, I think, dip has a critical problem in general, which I think is why Fritos or whoever made them made scoopers. That one that's like
Super
good for
smart.
dip. Yeah. Because carrot sticks, that first bite, the bite you dipped is good. Now you're stuck with a carrot stick. Who wants just a plain carrot stick? Celery? That
Disgusting.
part you dipped is great. Now you got a whole stalk of celery. Like, there should
Celery
be.
is only a vehicle for dip. It's even concaved that way.
It only is. And so dip is a problem in general because dip is delicious. I am a dip man. I love to dip. I love my dips. But am regularly stuck with food items I don't want to eat because I've eaten the good part already. And I can't be a kid and throw it away. I can't. I just got to suffer down that extra piece of bell pepper.
So I've got two things that I can do. I've never thought of this one before, but I'm thinking if you hold the chip with the tiniest amount of your fingers possible and you dip close to your fingers and do a like kind of 270-degree turn so that you get a little bit of dip around the entire rim of the chip, then you extract it, and the only part that doesn't have dip on it is where your fingers are placed. That could be the ultimate dip.
It could be, but you better have a plate nearby. There's going to be a drippy
that's true.
situation. There's going to be, I mean, like depending, that could be ideal, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that scenario. Like dip, the whole point of dip is ease. It should be an easy thing, and dip is incredibly. It is like harder than any Michelin star fine dining to master. There's no good way to do it.
So I've got advice for our listeners this 4th of July. If you have access to a plate, but you don't have access to a utensil to scoop dip onto the plate, use a chip as the scooping vessel. And that's going to be, a throwaway chip maybe because it's got too much dip on it at that point, but you use it to scoop all the dip onto your plate. Then you take a handful of chips, put them on your plate. Boom. Now you don't contaminate anything. You've got your own little dip situation.
Triple dip at that point, quadruple dip
That's
if
what
your
that
heart desires. Yeah, that's the real truth. I suppose hosts who serve big dishes of dip with fault is on them. Like a host who has a big old thing of French onion dip out there.
I knew you were going to love that French onion dip.
I love the French onion dip.
It's such a good dip.
But if you have a huge old thing, and that is the best dip, and like more deadly than any MSG. Once you taste a little bit of French onion dip, you're going to be fiending for French onion dip and bad for the next couple hours, right? Until you have a rotten stomachache. You're not going to be able to stop French onion dipping. And so you host are just torturing your poor guests. Like provide either small little dips that people can take or a way to, a nice serving spoon in the dip.
Dude, so I'm pretty sure I encountered that French onion dip, I'm going to say 5 times throughout the first 38 years of my life. Then I met Lauren. And the Parks family, her family.
French onion dip family?
Every occasion. It doesn't matter. Summertime, wintertime, doesn't matter. We'll go on vacation somewhere. They'll make a trip to the grocery store to get that pack of powder and some sour cream. Those are the only ingredients. And I have fallen in love with that dip. I am a convert. I thought I was a guacamole man. I like
No.
I love a 7-layer dip. I love a ranch if you're talking about those aforementioned vegetables. But that French onion dip puts all of them to shame, and they will power through the thing. They will literally, it's a family of, I don't know, 6, maybe 7. They will clean out the entire bowl in short order, too.
I mean, I'm convinced that the number one ingredient on that packet must be monosodium glutamate. Like, there is no way that is not just pure, and or it's maybe even cocaine. Like, it is so addictive that it's not just the way it tastes. A lot of things taste good, and I'm not get one taste to it, and I'm like, yeah.
Right. You turn into a fiend.
I will stand by that bowl of French onion dip like for 15 minutes, just standing there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's weird. It's unnatural.
I totally agree. They are addicted. I have never seen this behavior in them prior, and I'm now inclined to taste the powder by itself. You don't even need the sour cream. And by this time next week on this show, I might be snorting the powder.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is that where it could go? I feel that
straight to the bloodstream, dude.
The fentanyl crisis could be averted by introduction of French onion dip powder into the community, except then they'll lace that with fentanyl. Then just everybody will be dead. That's all you need to do is put a little fentanyl in French onion dip, and you would kill the entire population.
I'm going to show up at our 4th of July get-together with their family with the French onion powder on a glass plate and rolled up dollar bills next to it.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll be like, where's the sour cream? I'm like, no, this week we're going straight to the bloodstream. Why are you guys messing around cutting it with sour cream? Freaking disgusting and tons of calories. Let's just do this stuff straight. They're like, man, your eyes are bug-eyed and I've never seen you so intense. I'm like, well, I've got a new passion in my life, ladies and gentlemen.
That's real good.
French onion. Man, okay, good. Well, hey, great advice for our listeners as always. So I'm glad we solved this one. Good job.
Yep.
And thanks to Buell, by the way, for supporting Barrel or Nah. We love Buell. We're going to give away a Buell. Best giveaway we've ever done. BuellSurf.com. Promo code BuellGrit25. Thank you so much. All right. And also, of course, thanks to VayerWatches.com. Promo code Splendor15 and drinkag1.com/surf. Chaz, good luck on the movie set.
Back to the Spawn Ranch right now.
Yeah, good job for supporting the daughter, too, from New York and the American Academy of Ballet, I think is what it's called, to the movie
School
Hollywood.
of American Ballet? Yeah, the School of American Ballet is so much easier. That was a drop and go. Ballet is so much better that way. Ballet is like, we don't want a parent within 500 yards of the school, not because we're worried about you, but we own your child. We will craft your child. Movies like, yesterday she had to do a stunt. Dad, can you get in here? Like they have it's the stunt coordinator is the guy who did the stunts in The Matrix. And she has to be harnessed in by law if she goes higher than 4 feet. So she was climbing this ladder. It was, I guess, a little sketch. She had to stand on the very top of the ladder.
Bailey's.
Yeah, Bailey's. she was Kaipo. But while he was putting the harness on, I think he had to readjust it. I had to stand there, while she was climbing, he had to be there. Ladder. This is climbing a ladder. My kid is not a wuss. She climbs ladders. He had to be there with his hands near her waist. I had to be right next to him to make sure no funny business was happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, good that these things are in place, but also so bad that we need to put these things in place because that all happened in the past.
I mean, I guess, yeah, for sure. There's a guy on set, a union guy. Guess what his job is?
I have no idea.
To catch a rattlesnake if it happens to be near. That's his whole job. He has a red bucket on his back and rattlesnake pinchers, and he just walks around. That's his job. He gets paid whatever he gets paid for.
How many rattlesnakes? How many rattlesnakes has that guy caught on this shoot?
I'm gonna ask him when I get back. I'm gonna find the rattlesnake guy and say how many. I haven't seen him catch one.
I mean, how many? Okay, here's the better question: how many shoots has he gone to since he caught his last rattlesnake?
I'll ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess 8.
Yep, there's 8 total, or 8 shoots since
he's been to 8 shoots since his last catch.
Okay, I'm gonna say he's never caught one.
Yeah, that seemed probably even better. Man, can they hire me to come not do something? Hire me to come catch the next unicorn.
Be the studio teacher, man. That's, I don't know how those guys get that gig. They literally have nothing to do. He sits there all day. But it's that you realize though, doing something
I know.
is a lot easier than I'm there. All those days that I'm on set feel never ending. I'm sitting there looking at my phone. I looked at my phone already. Let's look at it again. Oh, there it is again. Anything happen? No.
I fully understand that too. Like after the 8th shoot of doing nothing with your life for work, you're like, man, I wish I had meaning to my life. Like recording podcasts. All right. Well, hey, great show. Thanks for making it happen despite doing your excellent parenting of your very talented daughter. And what are we doing next week? Are you going to be home?
No, Cabo. Literally straight from here to Cabo, not even stopping by home.
Is that at least vacation?
Yeah, that's vacation, but I'll be there.
Good. You get to spend your daughter's paycheck that she earned on Spawn Ranch.
Exactly.
All right. Until next week.
Bon voyage.